Hello, welcome back to the reading of the poem of the Man-God, written by Maria Valtorta, Volume I, Chapter 10, Part 2, Mary's Canticle Imploring the Coming of the Christ. Mary is now silent, weeping and overwhelmed. Anna is also silent for a little while, and then with her clear voice of a deeply moved old woman, she asks, "Have you anything else to teach me, Mary?" Mary rouses. She must think in her humility that her teacher is reproaching her, and she exclaims, "Oh, forgive me. You are my teacher. I am nothing. But this voice comes from my heart. I watch over it to avoid speaking, but like a river that under the fury of water breaks its embankment, it has now overcome me and overflowed. Please pay no attention to my words and chastise my presumption. Words of mystery should remain in the depths of one's heart, which God helps in his goodness. I know, but this invisible presence is so sweet that I am filled with joy. Anna, please forgive your little servant." Anna embraces her, while tears shine on her old, wrinkled, trembling face. The tears run along her wrinkles, like water along an uneven ground that becomes a trembling swamp. But the old teacher does not provoke laughter. On the contrary, her crying excites the deepest respect. Mary is clasped in her arms, her little face against her teacher's breast, and it all finishes thus. Jesus says, "Mary remembered God. She dreamt of God. She thought, she dreamt. She was only seeing again what she had seen in the splendor of God's heaven. In the instant she was created to be united to the body conceived on the earth, she shared with God one of God's properties, although in a lesser degree, as was fitting. That is the property of remembering, seeing, and foreseeing, which is an attribute of the mighty and perfect intelligence, not impaired by fault. Man was created in the image and likeness of God. One of the likenesses is the capability for the soul of remembering, seeing, and foreseeing. This explains the faculty for reading into the future. This faculty sometimes comes directly by God's will. Sometimes it is a power of recollection that rises like the sun in the morning, illuminating a point on the horizon of centuries, already seen in the vision of God. Such mysteries are too deep to be fully understood by you, but consider. Can the supreme intelligence, the mind that knows everything, the sight that sees everything, give you something different from himself? Having created you by an act of his will and a breath of his infinite love, and having made you his children, both by your origin and your destination, he gives you it as an infinitesimal part, as the creature cannot contain the creator. But that part is perfect and complete, although infinitesimal. What treasure of intelligence God gave man! Adam, the fall impaired it, but my sacrifice reinstates it and opens the splendor of intelligence, its wealth, its science for you. How sublime is the human mind united to God by his grace, sharing with God the faculty of knowledge. The human mind united to God by grace. There is no other way. Those who inquisitively seek ultra-human secrets should remember that. All knowledge that does not come from a soul in grace, and is not in grace who is against God's law, which is very clear in its commandments, such knowledge comes from Satan. It seldom corresponds to the truth when human matters are concerned. It never corresponds to the truth with regard to superhuman matters. The demon is in fact the father of falsehood and can but lead on the path of falsehood. There is no other method of knowing the truth except the one that comes from God, who speaks and says or reminds as a father reminds his son of his paternal house and says to him, "Don't you remember when you used to do this with me? You saw that? You heard something else? Don't you remember when I used to kiss you goodbye? Do you remember when you saw me for the first time and you admired the bright light on my face shining on your virginal soul, which, having been just created by me, was still pure and free from the evil that later impaired you? Do you remember when you understood for the first time in a throb of love what love is, which is the mystery of our being and proceeding, and what the limited capability of a man in grace cannot reach, the spirit of science clarifies and teaches? But to possess the Spirit, grace is needed. To possess truth and science, grace is required. To possess the Father, grace is necessary. Grace is a tent in which the three persons dwell. It is a propitiatory on which the eternal Father rests and speaks, not from within a cloud, but revealing his face to his faithful children. Saints and just people remember God. They remember the words they heard in the creating mind, in which the supreme goodness revives in their hearts to raise them, like eagles, to the contemplation of the truth and to the knowledge of time. Mary was full of grace, the whole one. Enshrined grace was in her. The whole one enshrined grace prepared her like a bride for the wedding, like a nuptial bed for the offspring, like a divine person for her maternity and mission. She closes the cycle of the prophetesses of the Old Testament and opens the period of the spokesman of God of the New Testament. True ark of the Word of God, looking into her immaculate heart, she discovered the words of eternal knowledge, which the finger of God had written there. And she remembered, as all saints do, that she had already heard them when her immortal soul was being created by God Father, the creator of all living beings. And if she did not remember everything of her future mission, the reason is that God leaves some gaps in every human perfection, according to a law of divine prudence, out of goodness and as a reward to creatures. Mary, the second Eve, had to achieve her part of merit in being the mother of Christ, with a faithful goodwill that God exacted also from his Christ to make him a redeemer. The spirit of Mary was in heaven. Her morale and her body were on earth, and they had to tread on earth and on the flesh to reach the spirit and join it to the spirit in a fruitful embrace. Here, Maria Valtorta makes a note. A note of mine, superscript 11. All day yesterday, I thought I was going to see the news of the death of her parents being given to Mary by Zacharias. I do not know why. I also thought, in my way, that Jesus would have dealt with the point, remembrance of God by the saints, this morning, when the vision started. I said to myself, here we are. They will now tell her that she is an orphan. And my heart was already trembling because I would have experienced my own sadness of these past days. Instead, there has been absolutely nothing of what I thought I was going to see or hear, not even one word by mistake. I am very happy about this because it confirms that there is nothing of my own in this work, not even an honest suggestion with regard to one situation. It all comes from a different source. My continuous fear ceases until the next time, because I shall always be afraid of being deceived and deceiving. This has been a reading from the poem of the Man-God, Volume I, Chapter 10, Part 2, Mary's Canticle, Imploring the Coming of the Christ. Thank you for listening. May peace be with you.